Good morning. How are you
Good
this morning?
good morning, everybody. How you doing there, Nina? Good morning, and
I'm doing
everybody.
good.
Yeah, and everybody, welcome to the chat session. I'm Rodney Allen Rippey. You're watching the This Way Network. So, good morning. So, how's everything back in good old Alabama? Alabama.
Everything's doing great over here. I will tell you, we've got some construction going on nearby, and
I
I've been
understand.
hearing noise from it all morning. So don't be surprised if you hear some strange noises that you didn't
No,
expect.
no problem. Believe it or not, I have a maintenance crew that's supposed to be coming through too. So, no worries.
Ah,
But other than
okay.
that,
Not
well,
just me then.
that's right. Things sometimes things need to be tweaked. And this is just a Monday show, it's a chat session, and so we're
Hmm.
just on the heels of Father's Day. So all across America, we want to, and around the world, we want to wish all the dads a happy belated Father's Day. And it's really important that you know those dads out there who led the way, who took care of their families and just were the security and the provider. And you know what? I made a post on Facebook and I said, Rodney, you need to make an adjustment. Hello, Jacqueline. And I said, but Rodney, there's some lovely ladies out there who had to pull double duty. Sometimes the
Hmm.
guys were not around. So I said,
Hmm.
hey, to you ladies that had to do double duty, this is for you too. So I wish them, a happy Father's Day. Because you know what? Honestly, I know several moms who, just for whatever reason, they
Hmm.
ended up having to be mom and dad. And
Yeah.
and the funny thing about this is there was a friend of mine, dear friend of mine named Erica. Her name's Erica, and she had a son, and do you know he graduated college, and they're still,
Hmm.
and he's just successful doing his own thing. And I know several sets. Matter of fact, I know several sets of ladies who have had children, and they ended up the kids turned out just fine.
Hmm.
The children were well adjusted, and of course, it's a little difficult because
Hmm.
ideally, of course, you want to be able to have, you know, two two support systems in the household
Hmm.
and things like that. And and it's always better to have two support and
Hmm.
two incomes
Hmm.
because kids
Hmm.
kids are not cheap. So I understand that. And so I'm.
No.
It was funny. I made a post on Facebook. I said that I have not had the good fortune to become a father yet. So I said, but there's still
Yes.
time. There's still hope for me.
That's right. That's right.
But you have to, do things in God's time and be patient and all that good stuff. So that I
Hmm.
have been. Yep, 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 yep. So all
Yeah.
people from Abu Dhabi, yeah,
Abu Dhabi.
Abu
Yeah.
Dhabi, yeah, a lot of people around. We got
Yeah.
people all from Poland and all around places, all around. Got all
Hmm.
kind of good people. Let me check, see who's in the comments. Oh, Elvira's there, Jacqueline, our wonderful Carrie's there. Everybody's here. So
Hmm.
what do you say? You're always pretty knowledgeable, and I remember reading in the Word where it says that you know if our heavenly Father only gives good things, and I started thinking about that, and I go,
Hmm.
wow, earthly fathers have to have that same type of standard where they give the best information to their kids, and if
Hmm.
it is just a mom, that mom has to give the word of God and morals and
Hmm.
principles and all
Hmm.
those type of things. And I said, boy, I said, it all makes sense. It to me, it all makes sense that
Hmm.
if we look at how the Heavenly Father takes care of us, we as earthly parents should really do the same thing with our children.
True.
You know,
So
I,
true.
maybe and I know that
Yeah.
you have a million comments about that.
Well, one of the things I keep thinking about Father's Day is how
Mhm.
necessary fathers are, even if, and I was a single parent for a while.
Mhm. Oh
So,
yeah.
but one of the things I recognized while I was a single parent, and I had boys at the time. That's all I had was boys at that time.
Wow.
And yeah, I had 3 boys and they were stair-stepped, born one right after another, you know. And one of the things I became aware of was that women cannot teach boys how to be men.
That's true. I mean, that's
And yeah, and men cannot teach girls how to be women. It takes another
I just
woman to do that.
the
I'm
more
not saying there isn't some example there to
no, I got
follow
you.
or to I
Hmm.
think boys can learn from their mothers.
Right. I did.
Things, yeah, absolutely.
Mom,
You
mom taught
can
me how to
learn
cook.
things.
Mom taught me how to
There
sew
you
my
go.
little button on my shirt. I had a button that
Yeah.
popped off one time, and I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, can you sew this button on?" And my mom goes over to her sewing machine, and I'm thinking like, okay, she's gonna get out and needle and thread. She's gonna do it. She said, "Come here, Rodney, sit down." I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay." So she wants me to watch this. Mom says, "No, you gonna do it." I was like, "No, no, no, I can't do it. You do it." She goes, "Nope, nope, nope, nope." And next thing you know, mom is
Mhm.
she's sitting there coaching me. Okay. And my mom says, "Your eyes are better than mine, so thread the needle." Golly,
Mm.
putting needle thread through a needle. I was like, "How do
It's
you
not
do it?"
easy, is it?
She said, "Take your time." And mom did the old wet
Mhm.
it, and then,
Look in the end. That's right.
I was like, okay. And then, but you're absolutely right. And that's why, if you are a single parent out there, it's good to be able to have mentors. There are a lot of
Yes.
church groups, there are a lot of organizations
Yes.
where they will, if a woman has a
Mhm.
son, there are a lot of great men out there who will take that child under their wing and show them the way,
Yes.
and
Yes. And that's
vice
and
versa.
Rodney, that's what I started praying for as a single
Mhm.
parent, recognizing I cannot raise my boys to be men. I don't know how. I
Mhm.
don't know what it's like to be a man. So there's things that I would not even think of to teach them,
Right. And
that other
there are certain challenges that young boys have that girls don't, and there are certainly challenges that girls have that boys don't. So
yeah.
you have to kind of make an adjustment for that. You really do. Go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So anyway, that's what I began to realize, and so I started praying and
Mm-hmm.
asking that God would bring for each child
Yeah.
a figure,
Yeah.
a male figure in their lives who would be interested, who would help them, who would mentor them, and do
Mm-hmm.
for them what I could not do. And I recognize that might be a different man for each child.
Hmm.
I wasn't praying for a husband.
Right. That's
You
right.
know, I was praying for someone to mentor my sons and help teach them how to be men. And God did bring along a man for each one of them. It might be, a teacher, it might be a scout leader, it
Yeah.
might be a man in the church.
That's right.
But for each one of my sons, they did have somebody like that
Mm-hmm.
helped teach them the things that men need to know that women wouldn't even think about, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. You're right.
So,
And also too, I remember last year I went through this thing. Man, actually, I'm gonna tell you, if you've never been to a men's conference where, I mean, they lock the ladies out and they're like no ladies allowed, and the men get really, really, um, I mean, just really real, and they talk
mhm,
about certain struggles and stuff.
mhm,
And I'm like,
mhm.
whoa, I mean, because there was like 125 men, and it was really beautiful. They broke everybody down in sections, so there might have been maybe 8 guys at every table, and to hear these grown men tell their stories of stuff that happened, and you're like, and I mean, I'm not kidding. I was like, has everybody been through something crazy like this? But I guess if you sit there at the table and you listen to their stories, everybody has had some kind of
Mhm.
traumatic experience in their male life. And
Yeah.
when you start talking about um, things that men struggle with,
Mhm.
and men are sitting there talking about that, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, I came out. That thing was like a week long conference, and it was amazing the perspective you come from. And then they said, matter of fact, I've got to call these guys because they set us up with everybody that was in the group, we all exchanged numbers, and we're supposed to call and check in and keep everybody
Good.
accountable. And
Good. That's
it was
good.
it
We
was
need community.
yes, yes, yes. And so that's what it's all about. It did the same. It's just a wonderful thing when you have to continue on, Nina.
Oh, I was just noting what Jacqueline said. She said, I
Uh-huh.
agree with your observation. Children do need both parents to teach them. God does
Mhm.
provide a mentor through a brother or a friend. There you go.
That's right.
Uncles,
That's right. That's
cousins,
right.
sometimes it's somebody in the family, sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
God will raise someone up for you, and God Himself, I think, will teach them things. But Rodney, I was listening to what's his name, Vince Everett Ellison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
never heard him talk before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching him in an interview, and he was talking about that very thing, that there are things that only men can teach their boys that women wouldn't think of doing, you know.
Yeah,
And
man.
frankly, women would probably teach them a little different way. We see something that we are fearful of for our sons, and we're not
Mm-hmm.
saying, hey, here's how you meet that with courage. We're saying
Right.
instead, maybe you better stay away from that. Let's keep you safe. Because that's what women do. We're about nurturing, keeping people safe.
Mm-hmm.
But only a man would probably think, no, you have to face your fear. Here's what you have to do.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, when I did that men's group, the vulnerability, I mean, to see
Hmm.
people literally, I mean, grown men, I mean, old enough to be my dad, these guys started
Yeah.
crying, and I was like, oh Lord. I was like, this can't, I mean, but I was like, well, they have to be real. And when they started talking about
Hmm.
things that happen and things that were in their family, just like,
Hmm.
sometimes you got a big brother and your big brother's, oh, toughen up. And, and
Hmm.
sometimes toughening up and dealing with some type of situation is two different things. Yeah, you can be tough, but
Right.
it might be some kind of emotional tie or something going on. And it was very, very empowering. It really was. It
Hmm.
was very, very, empowering, to be a
Hmm.
part of that. And you're right. And there are certain things that, and I've heard of these fantastic women's conferences when these women all get together and they boot the men out.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
women learn
Yeah.
things about men, and that was another thing. The woo boy, the guys started talking about relationships
Hmm.
and the temptations and things that men have to face and how
Hmm.
not to even open up that window. You can't even play around with
Right.
certain stuff because if you start with certain things, and I was like, whew, I was like, okay. And I mean, I've got a whole notebook full of things.
Hmm.
And next time, you know what? Matter of fact, I might even have to dig that out and and see if we can get somebody booked here on the chat session because man, that was powerful, and I'm telling you, it was accountable. You have
Hmm.
to look at yourself in a way and go, that's a problem. That's a problem. I can't do
Hmm.
that. I can't think this way, and everything about relationships. And again, they started, the in the men's conference, they did talk about, when you hear guys who have, I haven't been married yet, but when you start hearing guys talk about being married for 30 and 40 years, and I would,
Hmm.
and I asked him, I said, and you would hear that question, what was the most difficult thing about, you know, that you encountered being married? And you just kind of sit there and you listen and you hear these guys and they say, you have to be understanding. And most people fight. I mean, they really, really
Hmm.
disagree. And the thing I loved about my mom and dad, I heard them disagree about things, but and they confirmed it in this men's conference. Never get personal. If you're
Hmm.
talking about
Hmm.
something, don't say you. You need to, you. I never heard my mom and dad say you. It was
Hmm.
about that. It was like I remember.
Right.
It was really funny. My dad told my mom. I heard him. He goes, here's some money. I need you to pay this bill, and I got to go to work. So he leaves.
Hmm.
And so that day, I'm just a little boy. I'm tagging along with mom, and mom says, Rodney, she opened some mail up and she goes, ooh. And I was like, mom says, oh, I got to go take care of this. And so it was the insurance policy. Dad wanted mom to pay some bill. And mom opened this bill, and there was an insurance premium that needed to be paid or it could potentially cancel. And that was insurance. You can't play around with that.
Mhm.
So I remember dad came home that day and said, hey, did you take care of that bill? And mom said, no, I did not. I paid the insurance. And he says, but I told you to pay the such and such bill. She goes, no, Fred, you can't do that. I needed to pay the insurance. The insurance was more important. And he said, but I told you to pay. She says, look, Fred, that can wait. There's time on that. That is not that urgent. And so the way that they fixed it, exactly what dad told her to do, mom did something different, and she gave him a viable reason, and
Mhm.
she shut him down. She really did. She shut him down. She goes, what, did you want the insurance to cancel? You have paid all this
Mhm.
money in these premiums and you just want to lose all that, and this other thing could have waited. And he was like,
Mhm.
okay. And I
Mhm.
was like,
Mhm.
wow. But I think that's the beauty of a good working relationship, where you can disagree, but it takes communication. You can disagree
Mhm.
all day long about, or not, hopefully not all day long, but you can disagree on things. And if two people really truly love each other and they're looking out for each one's best interest, you can say, no, I need to do this. And if
Mhm.
logical conversation is
Mhm.
struck, a logical outcome should come, unless somebody is flawed. You know what I mean? Because
Right. Right.
if you're having a basic, straight up conversation, and what you're saying is loving, caring, and mutually beneficial, everybody should
Mhm.
get it. There shouldn't be any problem.
Right. Right. And you don't get personal. Because
Yeah,
think
you
of the
never get
things that
those.
your mom could have said, you know, "Listen, Fred, that's stupid."
You're
She could
right.
have said that, but
Yeah.
she didn't. She kept it
Right.
respectful. She kept
Yeah.
it respectful and about the issue,
That's
didn't
right.
make it personal in any way.
That's
Yeah.
right. And
And,
I
that
love it.
go ahead.
No, I said I love that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Dads are under so much pressure in a way. They've got so much going on. They're helping provide for the family. Not saying mom isn't, she probably is too, but
Yep.
the dads are providing for the family. They come home and there's all these other issues going on that maybe they weren't home to see what the source of those was.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to figure it out, figure
Right.
out, okay, what's this really about? Someone's having
Mm-hmm.
a meltdown. I don't know what this is really about. And they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to be caring but at the same time, they've got stuff around the house they're supposed to be fixing
Do you
or
remember?
trying to take care of.
Do you remember that crazy? It was a crazy cartoon called "Wait Till Your Father Gets Home." Remember that?
I do remember that.
And you
Yeah.
know what? But see, that for me, that TV show, but just that phrase, "Wait till your father gets home,"
Mhm.
that took care of a lot of behavioral problems. Because my mom would say, "Oh, just wait till your father gets home," and I was like, "No, no, no." So that during the
Mhm.
day, you knew daddy was coming home, and you didn't want him to come in the door tired from work. Because my mom was, oh my God, my mom had a psychology that was just terrible. I mean, it was just incredible how she would wait. If you did something screwed up, dad would pull in the driveway. He's tired. He's trying to get in the door. My mom would not even let him in the house. She would start talking.
Mhm.
She would open the door, and he'd be like, can I come in the house, please?" No, no, you can't. Listen, let me tell you what Rodney did. And he'd be like, "Could you please?" And she would, oh my God. He's like, "Can I get in the house, please?" No, no, you need to listen to this. And I'd be like, no, 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 let him in the house. Come on. And she would have this like 2 or 3 minute conversation on the porch, and dad would come in and he would be fuming by that time. And
Mhm.
she'd warm
Mhm.
him up. And I was like, so that taught me, mama was a technician. Do not get mama riled up and have her to say, wait till your father gets home. So pretty funny story. So I only had a couple of incidences like that, but I
You know
realized,
what I think was happening there, Rodney?
yeah.
She wanted to talk to your dad alone, uninterrupted, so that she could tell him her side of things and maybe say things that she didn't necessarily want you to hear, but she needed to express, you
My
know?
mom, listen, my mom had no problem expressing herself. It was a setup. My mom, my mom was a setup artist.
Mhm.
She would get him mad. That's what it was, because she knew he was tired and trying to get in the door. And
Mhm.
she'd be, hey, how you doing, Fred? Listen, let me talk to you about something. And he's like, excuse me, can I get in the house? No, 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 you can't. Listen, let me tell you what Rodney did today. And he'd be like, well, why did what? So it was comical. It was so comical, some of the stuff. But anyway, it was very effective. Great
Mhm.
communication
Mhm.
between them two. And so, no, and I'll tell you what that was about. It was about my mom leveraging my dad as a man to be the anchor of
Mhm.
correction in the house. Mama, oh my goodness, Mama did more correction than Dad did. He really did. I mean,
Mhm.
Dad was like the heavy, but
Mhm.
if 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 Mama brought Daddy in, she really wanted you to get jacked up. She really did. So,
Mhm.
but the whole thing is, it was a system. So I learned to respect the system. I was like, Rodney, if you do not listen to Mama, she is going to tell Daddy when he gets home. And you
Mhm.
know, Daddy's tired when he gets home. He don't want to hear this. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I better listen to Mom. So good system.
Okay, now I have to ask,
Yeah,
because my dad used to tell me that when he got in trouble,
yeah.
his mom was a great disciplinarian, but if
Mm-hmm.
it was really serious,
Mm-hmm.
she would wait for his dad and she would tell his dad what he had done, and his dad would take him out to the woodshed. And I
Oh
mean that literally. They
yeah,
had a woodshed,
I'm
and
sure.
that's where his dad would take him. And my dad used to tell me that on the way to the woodshed with his dad, he started cracking jokes, trying to get his dad laughing.
That's funny.
And he said there was many a time in the woodshed, his dad would be letting him have it, but he's laughing the whole time.
That's funny.
And he said, I don't know that what I got was, not as severe as it would have been.
You're
He
right,
said, because
right,
I didn't have the would have been, thankfully.
right.
But he said, but I have to believe it helped a little bit. So did you ever do anything like that? Was there anything you could do to help get around your dad a little bit or soften the blow?
You know, you always have that negotiating power, and
Mhm.
I remember, I just remember all kinds of different scenarios of that, and you just like, do you love me? Do you love me? No, you don't want to do that, do you? And all these kind
Oh,
of,
no, you can do that to your mother. That will pull at your mother's heartstrings. "Mommy, I love you." And then
yeah,
she's
oh
like,
my
"I love
goodness,
you too, but you're
yeah,
getting it anyway," you know?
exactly, exactly. But you know what? That's another thing. I've always understood, and I hear a lot of people, you have to be able to correct a child at an early enough age, because once you do that, the child understands the the consequences of either bad behavior, poor decisions, and stuff like that. And I really believe that, and I'm very thankful that I had a mom and dad that also led with correction and an example, because
Mhm.
there's certain things that if you let a child, you let a child off easy, and if a child starts to believe that, oh, I can get away with this, I can get away with this with mom,
Mhm.
they'll
Mhm.
carry that attitude through life in their relationships, dealing with
Mhm.
school teachers, dealing with the
Mhm.
police, dealing with people in random. And I started thinking about that. Me and my brother and all our little jughead friends from Long Beach. Big shout out to all my partners, Jeff Walker and everybody, and Leroy and George and everybody that we all grew up with on the west side of Long Beach. You know, we had a responsibility with our parents,
Mhm.
and the community. If you did something crazy on our block, or somebody heard you acting crazy, they would call your parents and say, hey, I heard Rodney. And next thing you know, we're like, who told on us? The neighborhood. The neighborhood had
That's right.
ears and eyes. So the community watch thing, we really need to bring back, because And a lot of times people feel like, you know, they say, oh, I don't want to rat, you know, him out or tell on him. But you know what? Our neighborhood was quiet. Our neighborhood was safe. People had respect for other people's property. I remember, like, I don't know if I mentioned this one time, but there was a strange car parked in front of our house, and some guy was just sitting in the car. And the neighbor across the street, our phone rings, and they say, hey, Fred, who's that parked out in front of your house? And my dad peeps out the curtain. He goes, I don't know. He goes, that guy's been sitting out there in that car for about 45 minutes. Really? And they said, hey, man, let's take a walk. And so they said in 3 minutes, we all taking a walk. And they called another neighbor. And all of a sudden, 4 minutes on the dot, they walked out the house. And all these guys walked out and started standing near that car. That car cranked up and drove down the block.
I love it. I love it. That is a fantastic response from the neighborhood.
And my dad and all these guys were not empty-handed, so to speak. I mean, these guys had action, and I was like, and I seen Dad. Whenever Dad said, "I'll be right back," Dad went back to the bedroom and picked up something and walked outside. And I was like, "Where's Daddy going?" And Mama said, "Rodney, stay in the house. Get back." And I was like, "Okay." So I'm like, I'm peeping out the curtain, and seriously, all four of these guys walked out of the house, and everybody had something. I don't know what it was, but they had something, and they said, "Hey, man, how you doing? Hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing?" And everybody looking at the car. The car took off, and I was like,
they were letting them know, we know you're there.
Right.
And all of us see you, and all of us are ready to act.
And I'm telling you, see these guys come out of 4 different houses, all coming together. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey. And they all
at the
same time. I'm talking about on the dime. I was like, wow, that's real community watch. That's real community.
I love that. I love that.
Nothing was said to the person. Nothing was done. But just that presence is so important, you know. And that's for every community.
You know, Rodney, I lived in a neighborhood for a long time. And when we first moved in there, I made a point of getting to know my neighbors. But one by one, as they moved out, and new ones would come in, some of the new ones didn't seem interested in getting to know their neighbors. So nowadays, a lot of people don't even know who their neighbors are, much less they don't have their phone numbers. They don't know how to reach them.
That's right.
And we're living in this isolation instead of community like we were meant to do. The isolation means we don't have anybody to call on. Nobody is looking or watching. Nobody knows when anything is out of the ordinary. You know, right now I live in an apartment complex, and we have a community watch, and we've talked about, you know, watching out to see if there are cars that you don't recognize in the parking lot, because there should only be the cars, you know, here on a long-term basis of people that live here, right? So, or maybe people that, you know, visit them regularly. Oh yeah, that's the home health care nurse who comes to see her every day or something like that. But when you don't know who lives here, you don't know your neighbors, you haven't paid attention to all of that, or maybe they don't know who you are, something can happen and nobody even knows it. And you could have taken care of it early, just like your neighbors did when they walked out of their houses, instead of having something happen.
Wow. And that's why every community needs to have an emergency plan. It's good to know your neighbors and stuff like that. Of course, a lot of people are like, I don't want people in my business. Nobody wants to get into your business. But it's good to have an emergency backup. You never know when something happens, or
you don't have to be chummy. You know, the neighbors that I got to know at the beginning when we first moved in there, most of them were there at least 5 years after we had moved in. So we, you know, but we were not chummy with any of them, I would say. But I do remember, like you were saying, I do remember one day we got each other's phone numbers, you know, in case there was a problem. I remember one day there was one of my neighbors across the street. I lived in a cul-de-sac, And they called and they said, do you have a friend visiting? And we said, no. And he said, well, there's a man standing on your porch and he's been there for about 10 minutes.
Wow.
What? And then I go look out a different window,
Yeah.
that doesn't look out onto the porch. And sure enough, there's a car in our driveway. And I thought, I never would have known this if the neighbor hadn't called. So,
Sometimes it's just mistaken addresses. Sometimes,
mhm,
but
mhm.
you have got to understand, that that's what community is all about. Because
Yeah.
that's terrifying. Imagine you being a single woman and there's some guy standing on your porch, or in this day and age, if there's some crazy lady standing on your porch and you're a guy, you're
Mhm.
like, what does she want? Who is this lady? I
Yeah.
mean, you
Yeah.
better look out, because let me tell you something. Mean is mean. Evil is evil. It don't, whether there's some evil women and there's some
Mhm.
show enough evil
Mhm.
men. And in this day and time, it's good to be aware. It's good to be, uh, you know, think safety first. Look out for your
Mhm.
neighbors and have your neighbors look out for you, because I'm telling you, there are so many things that, things that are just unnecessary. I mean,
Mhm.
out here in
Mhm.
California and all around the country, people were stealing people's catalytic converters, off their cars. They were
Mhm.
cutting the
Mhm.
exhaust, and there are people out here. You hear if you hear something at 2 o'clock in the morning going on, and if you're a neighbor, you ain't got to go out and confront anybody, because that's dangerous. But if
Mhm.
you see somebody tipping around at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, yeah, you need to call somebody. Call the police. You ain't got to get involved. Say, hey, there's somebody out here doing mechanic work at 2:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and don't get me wrong, I have been one. I had a car problem, and yes, I was doing mechanic work at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I was legit to quit. I was too legit, but I had to get to work. But you have to really, we all have to love each other and look out for each other. And you're right. And
Mhm.
Nina, you always
Mhm.
come up with great stuff, and everybody, yeah, we want everybody to be safe, always think about your neighbors, and hopefully, and you're right, you don't have to be chummy, but you do need to be social. You know,
Mhm.
we live in a world where we truly do need each other. And I'm telling you,
Mhm.
you think you don't need somebody until you need somebody. Wait until there's an emergency. And then you're like, God, if I just knew my neighbor, I could just, that's when you kind of get the old slap in the face and you say,
Right.
maybe I should have, maybe I could have, yeah, maybe I should
Mhm.
exchange information with that person.
Mhm. Mhm.
And again, we all live in this bubble, and we could really be more helpful for one another. And I think if if the world knew that more people were watching, people would be a little less uh people would be a little less, excited about trying to do things that just
Mhm.
isn't right. But
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. I
Yeah,
think by isolating ourselves, we make it easier to become prey.
right. That you're very true. You're very true.
Mhm.
Hmm. Well, Nina, we are at the end of our wonderful chat session. Time
Yeah,
flies when you're having fun.
it does. It does
Yeah,
indeed. But I
yeah,
so enjoyed our discussion today with dads and neighbors, and I
yeah,
loved hearing your story. Thank you so much for telling me that. I think I'm going to be sharing that with a few people. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it comes from a heart, like I said, in life's experiences. Some of the things that, like I said, growing up and seeing, and that's not just me. Everybody on here, from Jacqueline to Elvira and Carrie and everybody who's here, who's watching, everybody has those heartwarming stories and those learning and teaching moments in our lives. And this stuff matters so much. And again, to all the dads out there, happy Father's Day. May you always have a great day. Yes, you too, Carrie. Carrie says, have a great day. We want Carrie to have a great day and everybody to have a great day. And, may we always honor our Heavenly Father first, earthly father second, And then, hey,
Amen.
ladies, don't forget Mother's Day's there, so you need your honor too, just passed, and so that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Amen. I agree with that. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad you've been with us on the chat session on the This Way Network, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And
Yep.
our final word for you: be of good courage. God is with us, and we are not alone. Bye, everybody.
Amen. God bless. Have a good day, everybody.